Welcome to A Well-Designed Business with your host, Luann Nigara. Luann has a lifetime of experience building a multi-million-dollar business with her husband and cousin, and she knows the challenges you face in your interior design business. Luann brings you real-life answers to your most pressing problems, as well as practical strategies to explode your interior design business. So, let's get to the business of interior design.
Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. We're in full swing. 2018 is upon us. I hope you are ready to rock it out this year. I hope you've already made your business plan, and I hope you've set out your goals and set up your systems, right? It all starts there, and then it goes to a decision. You must decide to act. And what are you using to keep your firm and your projects and your vendors organized? I hope you'll consider our show sponsor, My Doma Studio, for this. My Doma Studio is the one platform where you can collaborate with your client, your vendors, and your team so that every project is well presented, easily tracked, and saves you time so you can spend more time designing or finding new clients. Go to www.mydomastudio.com/a-well-designed-business for your offer as a podcast listener. Okay, starting off 2018, my first guest of the year is Anita Dawson, and I'm pretty sure her story is going to inspire you simply because she and her story are just so relatable. My opinion is that when listening to Anita, your brain should start clicking on how you can duplicate some of the things that she did to grow her business. The cool thing is that her story actually applies whether you are brand new in your interior design business or many years into your business. So make sure you listen up and hear what Anita has to say. Dawson Design Group is based in Southern California. She opened in 2004, and since then, Anita has grown it into an award-winning company that is at the forefront of modern interior design for luxury homes. With new construction and major remodel projects in San Diego, Orange County, Austin, and Chicago, Dawson Design Group projects have been featured in Lux, Austin Home Monthly, San Diego Magazine, San Diego Home and Garden, Modern Interiors, and Better Homes and Gardens. So right 1 second before I get to the show, I just want to shout out to Christine Bishop and tell you to listen up because I asked Anita the question you emailed to me a few weeks ago. All righty, here we go. Let me introduce you to Anita. Hey, Anita, how are you? Thank you so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
I'm great. Thank you.
So, okay, Anita, all righty. You have a pretty big firm out there in Southern California and San Diego. And I thought today I have been getting a lot of questions, emails, messages from listeners who are aspiring to get to where your firm is, where you have 5 employees and that you are doing full design build projects. And they're saying, how do I get from doing the room to doing the floor to doing the house to doing the construction? I know a lot of the designers have mentioned to me that in the beginning of their career, take any and all jobs, you know, big, little, small. I've had really big designers, very successful, huge firms say that. And when I asked you a little bit about it off air, your story's a little different. So we're going to make a lot of people jealous with your story right now, but there's going to be value in there. I'm 100% sure of it. So would you just share with us how your firm got to be the type of firm that does bigger projects?
Sure, no problem. I don't think there's really a typical path to design. I mean, there are those people that start out from the beginning knowing that that's what they want to do, but a lot of us have reinvented ourselves along the way. And so I was in a reinvention. I had a different career. I had gone back to school. My first client was actually someone I knew from my previous career, but we were not friends. We had just known each other. She was on the board of one of my organizations, and she lived in my neighborhood and was building a house. Jogged by my house one day, as she was jogging. I had my garage door up. I was building a model for my senior project in design school on the floor, completely no makeup, just making my little model. And she stopped. She goes, "Oh, I'm building a house. Do you do custom furniture?" And I probably had said to somebody, not not that long before, I would love to do custom furniture. So I said, yeah, I do custom furniture. And she jogged on, and we met, and I met her team, her architect and her builder. And she was probably in the, like a drywall stage of her house. So there was a lot of finishes that had not been done. They hadn't built their cabinet. So I worked with the architect actually on finishing out her home, in addition to making some pretty cool furniture that she let me do. So that was my first real client. And
I know, like thousands of designers just went, "Are you kidding me?"
I know. I'm sorry. But you know what? I'm old. So I'm not 20, right? So I had to start fast because I have a lot to do, and I have a lot I want to do. So, but I always was of the mindset that I wanted to be around working with architects and with architecture. And so, I think you have to know, where you want to be. And I have a real respect for architects. So once I established that, or I had that relationship with that one architect, we went on to be, really good friends. Our friends today. I actually rented space from him in his office and his business. So I took my home office to his office, which was, a step. I think you don't have to have a place of business that's outside of your home, but I do think for me, it established a more professional atmosphere and allowed me to hire people. I couldn't really do that, or I didn't want to do that in my home office. And then just having that relationship, I think I worked on 2 projects after that with him because he needed someone he could rely on. And so that kind of mentory relationship I had with that architect was really critical in helping me build my business and into what I wanted it to be, which is basically new construction or major remodel for primarily modern homes.
Okay. So there's a few things in there that strike me as interesting. First, I'm just curious, from the time you did that, when you started that project, from the garage, in the first meeting with the 3 of with the architect, the contractor, and the house, and the house owner, what was it? A 1-year project, an 18-month project? How long did it go on?
That project for me was probably about 10 years because I'm still working for her. She's a really good friend. She and her husband, they've moved since.
Okay.
And we are now working on her second house. And I bet they'll move again. So.
Okay.
But probably I would say for that one house, maybe 6 months.
Okay. So what I'm looking for is the timeline. So you work on that project for 6 months, and then from that point, you now have started this foundation of a friendship with the architect. From that, when did you move from your home office to the renting the space in his office? From the day you meet the architect and that, then 6 months later, the lady gets her house, but at what point do you move into his office?
Probably a year.
Okay. So you spent 1 year out of your home office and then another 6 months after this project. Okay. So here's the thing in there. Of course, there was some luck happening there, obviously. The lady's jogging by, right? But the thing about that is that I'm curious about, you said, look, you started this not when you were 20 years old. So do you think that you had the ability mentally, I'm talking about mental fortitude, to say yes to your very first project, which I think a lot of people would agree could be perceived as above your pay grade, right? I mean, you're like literally graduating college, your design school as you're taking this project. Do you think that it was because you weren't 20 years old graduating? Do you think it's because you have a particular mindset that just says, I've got the skill set, and what I don't have, I will get and figure out? Like, tell me about, did you have any trepidation? Did you say, should I do this? Or were you just I'm going to do it, girl?
I have a very healthy respect for the things I don't know. And I don't know a lot, and I didn't know a tremendous amount at that point. But I do think having the maturity, both in just work experience, and my experience was my most recent previous career was in development fundraising for nonprofit arts organizations. And so there's a comfort level with high net worth clients that I had. And I've never had a problem in, being in that world. So I think that the comfort level, just being around people, and being mature was huge in being able to take on a project that, I may or may not have, should have been doing. I probably shouldn't have, but it wasn't, it wasn't as if I was working alone. I was working with the architect and the builder. So it was a very team. I would never have done something on my own. That's for sure.
Right.
I didn't have the skills.
Okay, and so two things in there. I like that. I like that there is a level of just coming to the table as a grown-up. Whether that grown-up is 25 years old or 35 years old, it's a headset, right? You come to the table as a grown-up, and you had a comfort level with high net worth. I've met people that are young adults, 25, 26, 28 years old, that have that comfort level because maybe they were raised in an environment of a very high wealthy, their own personal family is wealthy, all of the friends and the connections with the family. And so that can establish, it doesn't have to be age that establishes that comfort with a high net worth individual, but it's a component of it. Okay. And so I agree with that. All right. And then the other thing is that you described you're not working alone. And so that's terrific. But here's the thing. Talk to us about that line between understanding that you have been asked to be part of this team because you're bringing value. You have just completed your education. You are the designer on the project, but the balance of not being as seasoned as the other two, architect and contractor involved, and the dance of being able to learn and being able to say, no, this is what I think should happen here. Do you have observations on looking back on that when you were first on that project?
Sure. I think so bringing the value goes right back to school. I'm a strong proponent of education in this field, and bringing technical skills and be able to communicate what you want to have built to your contractor is really probably the most important thing. Whether it's verbal, but more likely, you need to be able to sketch. You need to be able to do plans, you need to be in CAD or Revit or, whatever you choose to be in SketchUp. You have to be able to communicate, and you have to give people clear direction. So that's, I was pretty good at that in school. And so being on my own, I was able to do that part of it. Not just say I want to, do this and hand a blob to someone to create, but also I just had a connection and a kind of an instant friendship with this architect in particular, and we had similar senses of humor and similar aesthetics, and so he trusted me to not mess up his designs, and he helped me through the other parts. And I think, with the referrals, I think that's was huge for me, is that I had a respect for the architectural process and for his vision, because it really is, it was his vision on this house. And so he didn't want to get into the nitty-gritty of the tile and the stain for the doors and the hardware and the, everything else that has to be chosen. That wasn't really his forte, and he was happy to pass that stuff on to me, or at least work with me on it.
Okay. And have you, because you did say that you had become very good friends and still are friends with him to this day, have you ever had the conversation or talked to him about, what he might have thought when you first were involved in the project, when he realized and understood it was your first project? Or were you able to work the whole 6 months and have him not know because you were able to professionally pull it off?
I don't think he knew.
Isn't that something?
I don't think he knew. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Well, but I mean, there's something to be said about that. That's it's 80% of what we do sometimes is just believing that you can do it and presenting confidence, right? I mean, if you have the education, if you have the skill, even if even if it doesn't come from education, listen, I've talked to designers on this podcast that I'm floored at what they can do, and they're like, yeah, no, I never went to design school, so I'm not even biased to having a design degree. I have no opinion on it. It's not my place to have an opinion on it. What I just know is what I've seen. I've met and spoke to very intelligent interior designers that have amazing businesses and talent and haven't been to school. So, but there's somewhere that confidence comes from. And if you are, if it's not coming from your education, then it's coming from somewhere. But the point is that that's 3/4 of what you got to bring to the table when you go into these situations where you're reaching, right? Because we're talking about somebody listening who's looking to reach to get to the next level, right?
Yeah, right. And yes, I have equal parts insecurity and confidence. And I think you have to be confident enough and aware of your own self to know that if you don't know the answer to something, you have to say that, and then you can't make it up. So I am confident enough to say, I don't know. Can you please explain what you're what you're talking about? Can you draw it out for me? I'm not clear. And I do that today. I mean, that is not a problem, and no one will say, gosh, I don't know why you don't know what I'm talking about. Basically, that it's just, you just have to get clarification, and they respect that.
Right.
So again, not being a diva, and to know that you're part of, you have to be very team oriented when you want to work in new construction. That's all it is. It's forming good relationships and respecting each other's skills and value.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that is such an important thing to just take a moment to repeat you should never be afraid to say you don't know something. Be very afraid of pretending to know something. That's a scary thing.
It's very scary. Yeah, it's a lot of money we're dealing with in someone's home, and I mean, you can easily, start rolling a ball down the hill if you answer something not incorrectly, but like you say, there's nothing to base what your answer is on, and you should just not do that.
And the ripples of the other decisions you're deciding, that are made based on that information. I have the experience of, 3 to 5 years ago, motorization and window treatment started to become very popular, and it took me probably a year and a half before I could have the conversation myself with the interior designer that was calling us on the project or the direct retail client, because I'd be like, here's how far I could get. Do you do motorized treatments? Yes. How do you do them? I have no idea. Okay.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. And so literally I would have to bring my partner Bill on as soon as the word motorization came up, it was like, oh, could we make another appointment, a follow-up appointment? I'd love. And the thing is, what it is there's a way to say you don't know something that doesn't make the person feel like your entire system and your entire company cannot be trusted. So it's not like, oh, we're just a bunch of airheads and we have no idea. This is going to be our first motorization project. Yay. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I would say, okay, I can see that the needs here are extensive, and this technology is going to be complicated, and to make sure that every step of the way, I give you the right information, Mr. Electrician, Mr. Homeowner, Mr. Designer. I'm going to schedule a meeting with my partner Bill so that we don't have anything lost in a translation between him and me and you. And nobody has a problem with that. People have a problem when you really, like you said, you have to have a healthy respect for what you don't know, right?
Right. Well, and I think I was just thinking as you were talking about when I first got into the business, I really wanted to be my own boss because I felt like I wanted to have control over my work life, right? And I was tired of the other environments I had been in that were a little more chaotic. I want control. Well, I look 10 years down the road, and I'm like, now I want less, like I'm actually creating less control. I'm creating more collaborative relationships. You're saying motorization. I don't do AV. When we're talking about homework systems or the, whole house, smart house systems, that's not my expertise level. So we bring those people into the team. When it comes to a really, really complicated lighting design, I bring in a lighting designer. Because, so we have collaborative relationships. So I'm giving up a lot of that control. I may be, in the leadership, design leadership position, and working with those people on, this is what I want to have happen, but I'm giving up that control to these other experts, and it makes for a much better project.
It definitely does, because, as interior designers, you have to have, I always feel like there's so many skill sets that you need to own. Like you said, CAD and Revit and SketchUp and all of these things. You need to own certain things that you really know how to do yourself technically. And even if you're at the point now that you're not doing it, I'm talking about as a firm, right? As a design firm. But beyond that, there's so many other products that you need to have a working knowledge of that it's almost impossible to gain expert knowledge of, and to not hire the window treatment expert, the AV expert, the lighting expert is doing your client a disservice, right?
Right. We definitely hire window treatment experts. I will tell you from day one, and anybody who knows me will tell you this is true, I do not want to do window treatments. They're complicated, and I leave it to somebody else. And so I have your number.
Yeah. No, it's true. And the thing is, it's like, and so for me, it's the same. It's like, I'm here, but then when it gets down there, and of course now 5 years later, I can have probably 85 to 90% of that conversation now on motorization. Whereas, years ago, 5 years ago, it was a 10%. I basically, like I said, I could say, yes, we do motorization. Whatever.
Right.
Now I have a working knowledge. And then every once in a while, there is a situation where it's like, I don't know that answer. Let's find out. Lifeline to Billy. I'll pull in one of my lifelines here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, so. I hear you. It is impossible to stay up. I mean, lighting in itself is changing constantly, and there's no way to know the products and the technology that fast and without having the actual expert, at least in your ear. So those are really, really good relationships that we forged.
That's good. So what we're going to say now is that looking back, obviously the first opportunity was a little tiny bit of stroke of luck, but you took advantage of it and didn't shrink away and didn't, you came to the table and grabbed the opportunity. Then within that opportunity, you presented yourself professionally. You brought your ideas, your opinions, and where you didn't know things, you were happy to say, I need to understand. I need to know how to do that. I need to know what that means. But you also said that one of the things looking back that you thought contributed to the success of that first relationship, and the reason that even though you were new that it was successful, was because you had a skill set where you could communicate what you wanted to communicate to the contractor and to the architect, whether it be through sketching or CAD or whatever. So you not just standing there saying, well, just like this, and trying to show them 16 pictures from house. You had a technical ability to come to the table as the third grown-up in that triad, right? Okay, so I like that. Now take me a little bit further. To you end up leasing the space within the architect's space. And it sounds like he sort of became, a mentor position to you. You went on to do other projects together. Were there things that you could remember looking back, almost like layers of lessons that continued as you went and continued that next year in business working with him?
Yes, he was definitely an informal, unpaid mentor. Poor guy. He was somebody that I could bounce things off, to him. Just simple things. Like, we have complicated codes every state has complicated codes, but we have complicated energy codes in California. And, we touch on that, and I know where to get in school, and I know where to get the information, but having like you said, an actual knowledge of what does this mean? What does Title 24 energy code mean? And how does it, affect the design that you're working on, for someone's home? And so he was always, mostly available to me whenever I had a question like that. And he enjoyed that. He was a special person that enjoyed teaching. But even just setting up your office, this is a very organized person. How he kept client binders, helped me establish how I was going to keep client binders. Because in the beginning I was like, I don't know. How are we going to do it? We're going to just have everything in one thing? Is
Shoe
everybody gonna have
boxes?
their own binder? Yeah, I mean, I tried everything. I had bins, I had notebooks, I had, and everything's digitized, but you still need to have, your paper, backups and things. And
Right.
so just simple things like that, getting some help. I also hired, for about 6 months, a person to help me organize and strategize on how to set up the business. And she was just a friend of a friend who did this for designers. And so she was like a admin person or part-time for a design firm. And then she went off and helped single designers like me set up their business. And that was really helpful.
Wow.
So, because I didn't have to, I didn't know, again, how to do that at all. I had no skills and no education in that. But she was really, really helpful. And she also brought in maybe my first bookkeeper at that time as well, because there's a skill I didn't have, right? I understand balance sheets and financial statements, but I didn't know how to bookkeep at all.
Two different things. Yep.
Two different things. And it's, so I guess I'm just saying you got to hire these people to help you along the way so that you can take yourself out of those projects and really concentrate on what you want to be doing and what you're good at.
Right. And it's one of the things that I learn when I speak with individual designers that are expressing the interest to move and go into bigger projects and up level the business, from $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 gross year firm to $750,000, $1 million plus firms. It's the first thing I often say to them is, are your systems sound? Have you sat down like you just described, set up your back end, your admin, and between the architect's input on how he did it and then hiring this woman, because the thing is, the last thing you want to do is scale and get bigger and then not have the systems to support all of that additional work. Whether it's one project that is work intensive because now you have your first design build, or it's 16 projects that are, smaller. But, so that's the thing. And I feel like a lot of times I'm asked the question, I'm not sure where to start. And the answer is set up your systems, then do your marketing, and then, do whatever. So, right.
Right. Yeah, marketing's big too. I mean, I don't do a lot of marketing now, but I did in the beginning.
Oh, what kinds of things did you do in the beginning?
Well, I mean, I really wasn't on Instagram or social media at all. So it was basically print advertising in my community. So I'd pick the major publication, shelter home magazine in my area and did some ads and we actually photographed the first project, this neighborhood project. We photographed that and got that in. It was published. So that was huge. And I had those lovely professional shots to use for advertising, which I did because I felt like, even though at that point I didn't have any business spending money on marketing, I had to get my name out there, and I had an asset. So, we put it out there, and I continued to do that. I did a lot of advertising the first probably 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And then I'm doing a lot less now.
So here's the question, because 10 years ago, when you start your firm, Instagram isn't even, something you would think of. So do you think that it's still advisable to investigate in the area shelter magazines and so forth for print marketing, or do you, and you may not know the answer to this, so don't worry if you don't, if you even haven't had to think about it, so you may not know, or do you think starting out now it's possible to build that awareness locally through Instagram?
I still think there is a value in print. It's a good format. There are some lovely, even things like, Luxe and Modern Luxury and Riviera that have national presence. And then they, so it's a kind of a different animal than your, San Diego Home and Garden, or, your town's shelter magazine. I think that, design work is appreciated in that kind of format. And then you drive your business to your website, you drive the business to your Instagram, and they can all feed off each other. I mean, Daring Hall is another place that you can get your your pictures out there. It's a beautiful site. House, of course, wasn't around, but once House, well, it probably was around, but I don't think I was on it in the beginning.
Right.
And so that really took off. We get a lot of interest and likes and blah 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 through House, but for our not that many qualified
right
customers, but it's still a really good marketing tool. So we use them all, but I do think that, and I will go back. I would also, if you want to be in new construction or ranger remodel and you want to have relationships with architects and builders, put an ad in the more building magazines that they're going to pick up. But people, if they're building a house, they're going to look at a client's going to look at all of those things.
Right.
They're going to go on House. They're going to do whatever social media, and they're going to pick up the magazine when they're at the store because they need as much help as they can get. And I often, even today, people bring me their notebooks of ideas and things, and some of it's are digital, but a lot of it is in print, and they've ripped out an ad.
Right. Yeah,
it may not be. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No. I agree with you. I think that we are often talking about Instagram and House and our website and all of this stuff, and we don't often talk about the print level of it. But I think there is some value there to gaining awareness in your community, whether
right.
your community be, greater San Diego or your community be, whatever, like a small town or whatever. But the thing is that I find that I've had mixed conversations. I mean, it's different conversations. Some people have told me that they have gotten several clients off of Instagram. But I would have to say, I think by and by, the conversations that I've had, most designers have not gotten clients off of Instagram. But it is a good place for the secondary reference, the backup. So if the client sees you, like you said, they're going to see you in a magazine, then they're going to go to your website, then they're going to go to your Instagram, then you're going to, and what we talk about with people like Kim Cutable, a branding expert that's been on the show, and Amy Fleury, who is Recipe for Press. When we talk about these people, when we talk with these people, and Nicole Heimer from Curio Electro, what they always say to us is, make sure the message is clear all the way through. So whichever way the person first gets to you, they are going to go around and check all the other things. And so that's why it's not like, hey, pitch your Instagram or pitch your house, but it is like what you're describing, almost like a full frontal attack with everything. And there has to be some synergy with everything, right?
Definitely. Marketing is big. Branding is big. And I didn't really know I was branding in the beginning, but because I have a particular aesthetic and I really only want to work in that one aesthetic. I mean, for the most part, if there's a great job that's outside, I'll take it. but I wanted to build modern homes in Southern California. And so that was from the beginning in our tagline. We are all about modern everything. That's not our tagline, but it was much more articulate than that. But that was in the ad. Right. And so, because I didn't want to do the Tuscan mansion, and I didn't want to do something that was French provincial, because those were not my areas of expertise or interest.
Right.
So, and I think a lot of people at that time, friends, and they know I'm starting out, were saying, "Oh, Anita, don't put yourself into a small subset of, you should." You need to grow your business and you need to take on all these other kind of things if they come your way. Well, to a point, that's true. I mean, you don't want to pass up a fabulous new construction project just because it might be a little more classic than you want. But, you have to, I wanted to position myself because I didn't have time to not do that. I needed to be in a fast track so that I could get to, a point more quickly.
Well, and that's, what's funny is you did it because you just innately knew you didn't have any interest in the other type of design. And so it was like, I'm just going to put it out there that I'm doing this. And that's exactly what all of these experts have said to us. And a lot of designers do resist it. Like you just said, you had colleagues and friends say, oh, don't shut the door on the other stuff. But every single expert in the area that's been on the show that is a branding and a marketing expert, slam dunk says, if this is what you want to do. Put it out there that that's what you want to do. Don't worry about the people that don't call you, because guess what? You just got done telling me you didn't want to do it. It's like, hello.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it's exactly right. And because of that, we actually have a reputation, at least locally, for that style. Mm-hmm. And lucky for us, the style of working in modern homes has just become very popular. Mm-hmm. So we have 10 years of photographs of modern homes and new construction projects or major remodel projects. Those clients are going to find us. And the other, with branding, the other thing I think we did is I think you have to be aware of your own personality, and you have to be aware of just who you are as a person, not just a designer. And who I am, I have to have a level of lightness and fun, and I want some humor. I want a good working relationship. And so in the beginning, I had actually some humor, and whimsy in all of my ads. And my best friend at the time said, do people respond to this? You might be putting people off because, maybe they want a serious, they think that it's not serious. And I said, listen, I don't want those clients.
Right. Well, see, I think it's great.
Yeah. So I think we've definitely, we attract a nice group because they're aligned with our values as a team, as designers.
That's terrific. You seem to organically understand what the experts have been trying to pound us over the head with and tell us. So that's pretty cool. I have a couple of questions. Yeah, no, it's great. And the thing what I love about it is that you can hear that it happened organically, that it was just important to you, so you did it despite other people trying to, persuade you otherwise. And so what I love about that is that if somebody's been on the fence about putting their stake in the, out into the world as I'm this sort of designer or this style personality, blah, 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 it should be more proof that it's not just an expert opinion. It's somebody who actually just came to it quite naturally, and it has, paid off. So I love it. I want to go back to the architect for a second. So I know that you mentioned that he was a person who enjoyed teaching, and so that was probably very important to him, and he got a lot of gratification out of it. But I'm imagining that there also was value that you were bringing to him in that collaborative environment of renting the space from him and working with him. It occurs to me that it wasn't probably you just coming down the hallway every other day going, what does this code mean and how do I do this? Can you think back to some of the ways that you gave value to him, so that if a designer listening is thinking, well, what could I do to make an architect's life a little bit easier, a little bit smoother, so that maybe an architect would think about having that sort of back and forth relationship with me?
Well, I think anybody appreciates having their life made easier. And so I think a lot of, there are architectural firms, and I have friends that are architects that have interior design sets to their firm. And so those people aside, many architects don't want to get into the minutia of what we do as interior designers when you're building a house, which is just, a myriad of decisions that have to be made and a lot of hand-holding or negotiation with the client. So that is taking that off of their plate, and while at the same time doing so that it enhances their architecture and their vision versus kind of goes down a different path, which is definitely something that I've heard from some of my colleagues that happens, is that, they get a designer involved and the designer has their own ideas, and they may not be as respectful of the architect's ideas. And I'm not saying that that's not a give and take, but I don't want to ever undermine what's already there. So, I may come in and tweak a plan, but I do that with the architect so that I can say, hey, listen, this is probably going to work better. My client has suggested that they need, a dining room for this, or their kitchen isn't quite working for them. So we work together on tweaking those plans, but I'm not going to just take it and run with it and have them show up with a completely different thing that they had in their mind in the beginning. I'm going to enhance their vision. So I would do that with Kent, my friend and an architect / mentor, that we would actually work on plans that I wasn't even part of. So he would be designing a house, and we would kind of have a little meeting, and he would show me what he was doing, and I would comment on it, and we would kind of play with it a little bit. So I think almost everybody likes having a collaborator or a partner or a support system, and many times these design firms, architecture firms, if you're a sole proprietor, you don't have that kind of the relationships. So I think it was good for him as well, and again, we had very good sense of humor that was very aligned, so we had a lot of fun doing it.
I like it. I mean, I think we have had the other guests mention it, but what I'm hearing in there is that, healthy respect for the architect. Don't throw them under the bus with the client. Oh my goodness, I can't believe, they, put that there. Right. And maybe if there is something, what you're saying is that's not going to be a terrific outcome for the client, you go to the architect separately, not necessarily in front of the client. And I heard you say, I think this would be, they kind of want this. Can we work this out?
Absolutely.
I like that. And then also, you're talking about taking this minutia off their plate. And so when we think about a designer listening, I know that we've had guests on the show describe that it's really a smart idea to reach out to architect firms and builders that don't have designers on staff and say, this is what I can offer. I'd love to work with you and be part of, a subset of your team, or, whatever it might be, and list all the different things that as a designer you can do for the architect, because like you said, they really probably, most of them not only don't have the interest, but don't have the time to get all the way down deep into which way is the backsplash tile going to get laid out, and what is the backsplash tile, right?
They just want, like a builder just wants you to tell them what to build.
Right, lady, just tell me where it goes.
Just tell me what to build, and be concise about it, and let them move on, because they're all about time, and they want, if you can, for a builder side, if you can bring decisions to them early, so that they can get things bid. They don't have to have delays. They can order their products. They're not having to pull a painter off a job because there's not a paint schedule yet. If you can help the client make those decisions, and sometimes that's the biggest part, right? You have to try to help that process go faster. Then he's not going to have delays, or she's not going to have delays, and it's they're going to love you for that.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, and the funny thing is I've mentioned Meryl Santopietro a couple of times on the show, because we think about this in residential, in single family homes. We it's easy for us to picture, let me go and Google architects, and it's 15-20 mile radius of my location, and start to make some phone calls and emails and pitch them on an idea of talking about how I can make their life easier, right? But Meryl, I don't know if you heard that show, Anita, but Meryl did that in Manhattan, and she literally walked into new construction, multi-million-dollar apartments in Manhattan, and literally would walk in and introduce herself to the concierge and try and get to the realtor that was selling up the building, or the construction team, manager that was in charge, and say, what, how hard is it for you to wrangle decisions out of 400 people that are buying units here? Half of them live in other parts of the country because this is their second little pied a terre to live for New York City. And she completely sold them on how she could bring value. And so it works whether you're in a big city that's full of buildings, high rises, or it works if you're in a more area that is single family units and stuff like that. So
I agree.
Just really make your list of how you can be helpful and valuable to the architect and the builder. And they're two separate targets to go after, right?
Yeah, definitely two different, and also, but very, I think for our firm, equally important. I would say that people ask about referrals, or how do I get the most jobs? And I guess maybe 40% are architects referrals, 40% are builder referrals, and 20% are client or other.
Wow.
Clients are great referrals. I mean, no question, they have friends, they may build another house, but builders are building 20 houses a year, and architects are designing 10 to 15 houses, depending on the size of their, so there's
Right.
it's just a better pool. And once you establish a relationship with either of those two groups, it's great because you know what to expect. They know what to expect. You're just part of a team.
Mm-hmm.
And once I was able to start having those teams that I knew this architect, I knew how he worked. Blah, 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 same with the builder. My stress level went down tremendously, because I knew they had my back. I had theirs. It was, we were all on the same goal to make this a great house and to make our clients happy.
No, it's terrific. I mean, I have mentioned that there's a particular interior designer in Long Island that I've mentioned a few times on the show. She is actually an architect, and all she does is she's an architect and designer, and all she does is design builds. And so she goes from the ground up all the way through to interiors, all finishes, all furnishings, all draperies, all lighting, and all the way to exterior landscaping. I mean, this woman is a powerhouse. That's all I can tell you. And it's unbelievable. And she started her business, I want to say it's probably about 27 or 28 years ago. We were the very first window treatment company that she interviewed and hired. I mean, I don't know how many she interviewed, but I mean, when she interviewed us, she hired us. I've done every project that she's ever done. Mm-hmm. And when I'm on the project, working it at the point that, like you said, the sheetrock and the drywall is up, I'm looking at the same GC. I'm looking at the same electrician. I'm looking at the, and it's like you get on every job and it's, for 25, 27 years, it's the same 7 or 8 core people and trades that she brings in. And I know for me, the number of questions that I don't have to ask her anymore, that I know the way she wants it. It's just so, and of course, when I do a project with her, it is 99.9% of the time window treatments for the entire home. And we're talking about, most homes are, the smallest are 7,000 square foot going to 15,000 square foot. So when you're doing window treatments for that many windows at one time, thank you for not having to ask 50 questions. The 150 left are just fine. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly right.
But that's her feeling on it too. It's like, we're going to talk about style. We're going to look at the individual moldings that she's got going on, but she doesn't have to talk to me about her construction. She doesn't have to talk to me about her lining. She doesn't have to talk to me about her hem sizes. She doesn't have to tell me any of that stuff, So it's terrific. And so it's a smart thing to be part of somebody's team, and because it helps everybody, like you said, the whole process, that they have your back. And that's the thing. There's things that happen, in the course of it, that in all the 9,000 details that she's got to come up with, if I find it's contrary information to what she told me, I don't just go, well, that's what she said to do.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, no set of plans is perfect.
Right.
I mean, nothing's perfect. And I have had those situations where maybe a contractor has or hasn't, but probably has noticed something and went ahead and just did it.
Yes.
And you're like, pick up the phone, right? We don't have that happen a lot, but just pick up the phone. We, clarify something.
Right. And that comes from the teamwork.
Easier.
Right. It comes from the teamwork because, it's not only because, like you said, you have each other's back, but, let's just be serious. You're going to face each other too. And when you look and say, couldn't you tell that was wrong? What's he going to do? Stand there and say, well, that's how you had it on your SketchUp. It's like, come on.
And, we don't, again, as you get bigger and you're able to do larger projects, I mean, the quality of the team is elevated as well. So that doesn't, it really doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
Whereas in the beginning it might have, because it was just, we were dealing with a different level.
One-offs, right. People that were in on this project but not on the next one. And so their commitment wasn't the same. And I find that, you start to see the same people showing up because they have proven their level of quality, right? And the designer, the architect, the contractor wants them back. Yeah. Awesome. So I have one other question unrelated to all of this, but I've gotten this question recently from a listener. So Christine Bishop wants to know, when you are starting out, or I guess this is valuable for at any level, you're probably at the point in your business, Anita, where you really are dealing with a client who's happy to have you completely finish each room. And then when you go to photograph, it's ready. But do you have advice? She's asking what happens when you've designed a room and maybe half or three quarters is really, really nice. But when it comes to taking those professional photographs, additional props and accessories might be necessary. She's saying, what do designers do? Can you think back in the beginning? Did you bring your own accessories in from your house? What did you do? She's asking.
Oh, I don't have to think back. I just did a photo shoot about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
We still do that. Yeah, we had a house, really adorable house, just came out great, shot it. And I thought it was going to be one of our easier shoots because we did complete it. We did accessories and rugs and lighting and furniture, everything's done, right? And the landscaping looks great. So I thought, oh, this is going to be a breeze. Well, it was one of those houses that needed just a little bit more oomph when you actually took a picture. And so I did all of the above. We buy things. If we're buying things, we typically try to buy things that we think the client's going to keep.
Okay.
So, same thing with memoing out things from showrooms. We do that. We say, hey, we got this shoot. We're totally upfront. We need it for a photo shoot, but we're hoping they will buy it. So, we do that. So we buy things. We lend things. I take things from my house. I don't have that much, and it's kind of funny because I don't have that much because over the years I have taken things from my house and the clients they wanted them, so they end up staying. So I have very little in my house right now, and my staff does the same thing. Like if I need, do you have a throw that's this color, and so they'll say, yeah, I can bring this or I can bring that. I mean, I have a feather bed that I bring to every single photo shoot because every bed needs to look puffier than it really is in real life. So I bring this photo. So now I have like this whole closet full of stuff, and the goal is to, with the exception of the feather bed kind of things and the towels, the goal is to try to leave the things there because it enhances the house. Okay. So there is that last 1% or 2% of things that only really happen if you photograph a place.
Right.
So,
and it's funny because I'm usually pretty good at remembering which guest told me what, and I'm drawing a blank, but I remember recently one of the designers said that when they do that, they layer on those extra things that have not been purchased, that are the accessories for the photo shoot, that they actually on that day have an itemized list of every item, its price. And this way, when the day is over and the client's looking at you saying, oh, I'd really love to have that. It's not like, well, what did it cost? Did it come from my assistant? Did we borrow it? You have it all organized and ready to sell. Is that how you do it as well?
Yes,
wow.
I have a page, and it has a little picture of the item. If it's my thing, I usually just leave it there. It's not that. But if I'm getting it from a showroom or I've purchased it, it definitely has what our cost was, what we can sell it for, and they always ask. I mean, it's if you mark up anything, then as part of your model, it's a way to actually try to recoup some of the expense of doing a photo shoot. I don't do that. That's not kind of my model. That's not
why you do it, right?
No, but that's just it's a little nice thing because a photo shoot is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can spend upwards. We don't usually do it on our own. We go in with the builder and the architect or whoever, landscape guy, right?
And divide up
so
the
we
cost.
Split the cost,
yes.
But a 2-day photo shoot can be $3,000 or $4,000.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's nice to have a little bit, a little bit of cushion, but it's mainly just because the client sees how cool it looks and they want it.
Right. So for younger designers listening, what you're also expressing is the different showrooms in the design centers. If there's accessories there or a chair or a lamp or a table, when you say up front, I'd like to memo this out for a photo shoot, they will typically allow you to do that.
Well, yes, they will. I mean, I think within reason, if especially if you have, work
A
with them.
relationship with them.
Yeah, if you have a relationship, it's all about that you
That's
have
right.
to be,
Build
they
it
want you to be
first.
legitimate. They don't want you to just be, some random person off the street. But if we have relationships, then yeah, we can't do a lot. We probably did four photo shoots this year, and so I'm very aware of not going back to the same people and say, can I borrow this again? Can I borrow this again? They're like, just buy it, right?
Right.
And at some level, I've done that. It's like, I just want to have these on hand so I
Because
can
you
just
know they're
have
good
them.
accessories or good
Right.
things
You
to
just have
have.
them on,
Yes.
yeah, and they're not expensive. You just have a closet. It used to be my garage. Now it's a closet
Okay.
in my office. But yeah, however you need to do it, but just be real and be upfront.
Right. And it does start, like, patronize that showroom often and let them see you. It's funny because, we have this thing in our business, and I have this, my book is coming out in February. I don't know when this is going to be airing, but one of the sections in the book, thank you. One of the sections in the book is assembling your team of experts, right? It's a book on business. Okay. And so one of the things is your bank. And my husband has been banking at the same bank for 50 years. Okay. 50 years. Okay. Most of people listening are like, are you kidding me? I'm not even anywhere near that old. Right. But the thing about it is
That's your husband. He's much older than you,
he
right?
is. He definitely is. But the thing about it is that I remember the funny part of the part of the story that was interesting. There was a point in the early 90s that I had to take over running the business as well as being in charge of the sales. So I was responsible for both ends. He left the business for about 2 years. And he said to me, Lou, you have to walk into the bank and do the deposit. And I'm like, wait, like I can go through the drive-thru. He's like, no, you have to walk into the bank and do the deposit. And I'm like, dude, you're out of your mind. Like, I got to sell $1 million in window treatments this year. I got to run the operations and manage the employees, and I have to walk into the bank when there's a perfectly good drive-thru. And he said to me, they don't know you. They know me. He goes, they have to know who you are. He he actually, said to me, look, once a week, if you make 2 deposits a week, once a week you've got to walk in, look over at the manager sitting at their desk, just smile, just nod, say hello to the tellers, use their name when you see their name card, tags. He said, and you must establish this relationship. And the thing is, what's funny about it is, I'll just tell you the rest of the story, which is interesting, and it really paid off for me, because about 10 months into my being at the helm of the business here, I get a phone call from the bank manager. And he says to me, I'm not sure what's going on over there. Is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, everything's okay, right? And he's like, well, he said, your account is overdrawn. And I'm like, my what? And he's like, yes, he goes, and I've got a lot of checks. He goes, 3 or 4 checks hit yesterday, 2 or 3 hit the day before. He goes, and I've been putting them through thinking I was going to see a deposit. He said, but I'm not seeing a deposit. He goes, and now that I look back, I don't have a deposit for you for the last 3 weeks. And I was like, what? And so what happened is that I had gotten a little busy and was using the drive-thru maybe more than once a week. Okay. But I had inadvertently picked up a stack of deposit slips from a closed bank account. And for 3 weeks, I was putting money into a bank account that didn't exist. And the bank, of course, let's just go there, how they didn't know that, okay? But, the point is that it was the relationship with the bank that saved that situation, that he let all of the things go through, and took us 2 or 3 more days to figure out what happened. And in that time, probably $50,000 or $60,000 worth of checks he put through and honored. You know what I mean? And so it reminds me of what you're saying about build the relationships with the different vendors. You might want to order fabrics or accessories from 15 different places, but it's always good to have that 4 or 5 that when you walk into the showroom or when you call, they know who you are. They know that your business is a business that you are supporting their business, because then you get a little bit further, right?
Right, definitely.
I love it. It's good. Very good. Okay, and I have one last question about this, setting up the photo shoot. I had a designer recently, I don't think it was Christine, I think it was a different designer, say to me, it seems on one hand so time consuming to be the one in charge of the photo shoot and to be, bringing all the stuff back and forth with your staff. And of course, we're probably getting the question from a younger designer with maybe one or two people on staff. But at the same time, she said, I understand that the vision has to be, stylized to what I want, but she just is asking for confirmation that the value of being on the photo shoot is worthwhile, correct?
Oh, I think it's fundamental.
Okay.
And the more you do your photo shoots, again, you're going to build a relationship with one or two photographers that you really like to work with, and you have to be that critical eye. Photo shoots, I mean, it's a whole animal, and they're exhausting. And I don't care how many staff I have. I lug stuff in, I lug stuff out. I stand on my feet for 12 hours, maybe 2 days in a row, depending on how big the house is. And it's all the lost wages. It's everything you're talking about plus the expense. And you have to do it.
Okay.
And you have to be there. You have to do it personally. That's how you're presenting yourself to the world.
Good. I think that this particular designer kind of innately figured that, but was looking for confirmation that it wasn't a waste of time and it wasn't crazy to take this time out of her day, her life, her schedule, and to oversee this. So thank you for confirming that for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, lady, you know your stuff.
If you say so.
No, a lot of great advice here. I love, all the actionable ways that you share to make yourself valuable and important member of a team, whether it is with an architect and or a construction build firm. It's all the ways that you build your business and you build your credibility, and it all goes around and comes around, helps somebody, and it comes back at you, right?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Anita.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been really fun. I really appreciate it.
So here's what I think. I think every single one of you listening right now, whether your firm is a month old or 10 years old, could make a list of every architect and or builder within a 30-mile radius of your firm and reach out to them. Yes, you could do that. And if you're thinking to yourself, not me, that's not how I do things. I couldn't possibly do that. I don't know how I would do it. I would be embarrassed to do it. I don't know what would happen. Well, I am talking to you because you know why? There is no downside. There really is not one bad thing that can come from this, okay? Let's play it through. Worst case scenario. What is the absolute worst thing that could happen if you did this? Here's what it is. You'll spend 30 minutes on Google making your list. You'll spend another 30 minutes composing an email. And I'm, padding the time here, assuming you're going to fret over it and make it perfect. I mean, that's what I would end up doing anyway. And then you're going to send it out to those architects and builders. And okay, so what's the worst thing that could happen? Nothing, right? I mean, that's it. That's actually the worst thing that could happen, that you do all of this and nothing happens. You see, I'm pretty sure you can recover from that, right? This isn't like an earth-shattering blow, is it? And let's not forget what I always tell you about cold calling. Cold calling is not personal. By nature, that is a cold call, right? So by nature, they are not rejecting you. So remove that part of the equation for yourself, okay? So worst case scenario, you do this. And I'm going to tell you what, if you have a full pipeline right now for Q1, okay, you're off the hook. You don't have to do this. But if you do not have a full pipeline for Q1, you have no excuse not to do this. An hour out of your life, and you might end up with one relationship. And that's the thing. In sales, it's a numbers game. When you do cold calling like this for sales, you want to throw a wide net, and you want to be very, very, very happy if you catch one fish, okay? Because think about it. Anita, has a relationship with one single architect her entire career. It has enhanced her business. It has enhanced her profession, her professionalism. She's learned things from him. It's enhanced her pocketbook. One architect. So if you make a list of 15, 20, 30 architects and builders, if you get one that you can get a follow-up phone call with, and maybe possibly a coffee date with, or even just another phone call where you lay out some parameters of what you would like the relationship to look like. Okay? So the thing is, you're looking for one yes. That's all you need, because that one yes could turn into your next $10,000 project. It could turn into your next $100,000 project. That's the reality of it. So please, all right? And I want to also say something to you too. Architects are human beings. Like, don't forget that part. Architects are sitting in their offices too and thinking and fretting and worrying about their pipeline. So if you are thinking that an architect does not want to hear from you, just take that away from your objections. You heard Anita describe how collaborative their relationship is and how much value the designer brings to the process when the architect does not have to, or the builder does not have to sit there and entertain every minutia of question and detail that must be addressed for the client. Okay? So architects and builders love it when you're involved in the process. Okay? So please, understand your value, understand what you bring to the table, and have no fear in reaching out, okay? So I really, really, really want you to do this. If you have any problems with it, email me, ask me, whatever, okay? I do one-on-one coaching, 1 hour coaching. If you need to, buy an hour to just run through it, buy an hour and run through it, okay? All righty, but you got to do it. Just think about the payoff that it could bring you, okay? And also, too, don't forget we had Enoch Sears on the show. He was episode 202, and he is an architect. He has a podcast called The Business of Architecture. And if you think that architects don't struggle with the same issues that you struggle with, go check out his podcast sometime. Because guess what? He's doing just what we're doing over here. He's doing over there, helping architects grow their business. And they go through all the same things that you go through. So, alrighty. Now, in addition to all of this, Anita had some pretty good advice, outside of just this relationship, this collaboration with her architect friend. So if you want your free PDF of the things I learned from Anita Dawson, head over to www.luannigara.com/Anita. Okay. I can't promise I'm going to be doing this for every single show, but I know a lot of you are always emailing and texting me and messaging me and saying it's, you have to listen to it twice, once when you're running or driving, and then once with a pen and paper. So I'm going to do my best. I'm not making any promises, but we'll see. I am going to try and do the things I learned from docs a little more often for you and make life a little bit easier for you. Okay. So if you want that, head over to luannigara.com/Anita, and it's a quick list of the tips that she shared today. Okay. Alrighty. Now, if you've enjoyed today's show, please share it with a friend. That'd be awesome. If you enjoyed today's show, please show some love to our sponsors, My Doma Studio, Cravit, FreshBooks. Don't forget, if you post a project on social media using anything from the Cravit line, use hashtag InstaCravit, and maybe you're going to get a repost from them. Okay. Alrighty. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have an excellent day. Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.